This morning on today's update, what happened to Morgan Harrington? The Virginia Tech student disappeared from a concert almost 1 year ago. Her body was found 3 months later. But this morning, her killer remains at large. In a moment, we will talk to Morgan's parents. But first, more on her story. She was young, beautiful, and full of promise. 20-year-old Morgan Harrington, a junior at Virginia Tech, was attending a Metallica concert when she became separated from her friends. She called to tell them she was okay and would find a ride home. They never saw her again.
Morgan is out there and hears us. Please come home. And if someone has Morgan, please let her go and come home safely.
Her parents, Dan and Jill, held vigil, hopeful for Morgan's safe return.
Morgan's last words to me were 2, 4, 1, Mama. I love you too much forever. One more time.
But 3 months after her disappearance, their worst nightmare was realized.
I saw a dead deer and I stopped and it was a human skull, and that's when I called 911.
A local farmer found Morgan's skeletal remains in a remote field just a few miles from the bridge where she was last seen.
The remains are those of Morgan Dana Harrington.
Her parents, desperate to be close to her, rushed to the scene. Gil Harrington hauntingly described seeing her daughter again for the first time.
I will tell you, having seen, that girl even had some lovely bones.
Finally, in July, 9 months after her disappearance, a crack in the case. Police tied forensic evidence from Morgan's crime scene to a sexual predator on the loose.
Now the face of evil was in front of me today.
Somebody out there can help us identify this person and help us make that link to Morgan's case.
But 3 months later, Morgan's cause of death and her killer are still a mystery.
Closure is not possible because I no longer have a beautiful, almost 21-year-old daughter that you cannot replace.
Morgan's parents, Dan and Gil Harrington, are with us exclusively this morning. Good morning to both of you. I want to talk about Morgan's legacy because it's so important, all that you've accomplished in this past year to honor your daughter and to remember her, keep her memory alive. But first, if we can talk about the status of the case. We just saw, and I want to put the picture up again of this man, the sketch that was released in July of a suspect in an assault case in Fairfax, Virginia 5 years ago that they have forensically linked to your daughter. Now, we know he could have changed over the past 5 years in appearance, but what have they told you, the police, in terms of the status of the case right now?
Well, the case really has not moved much beyond what we found out when the forensic link was made. We know that the case from 2005 is somehow connected to Morgan, but it's really...
a DNA connection.
It's a DNA connection,
right.
And what is confusing is how does Fairfax, Charlottesville, and even more importantly, the remote area of the 700-acre farm that she was found on. She wasn't just placed by the side of the road. She was deliberately placed in an area of that farm. I think that they thought they would never find a body.
Yeah, so you believe whoever placed her on that farm knew about that area before?
Yes. And the police feel that that's a very important connection.
I wish that we did have a big aha moment and there was something
Right.
that changed everything. I'm afraid that what's going to happen, real life crime, I've come to learn, doesn't work like TV shows. And what's going to happen, I think, is just the day in, day out, dogged police work, chasing down leads, re-interviewing people, and trying to put the pieces to this really complicated puzzle together. You know, it still is an active case. A year after Morgan was killed, I still have weekly contact with the agents from Virginia State Police who have worked with us. And they've been not only professional, but compassionate, because after a year, you know, we have a relationship with them.
Right.
I don't think they want it as bad as we do, but we all want it.
Yeah. Sunday marks 1 year since the last time she was seen on the Copley
That's
Road
correct.
Bridge at the University of Virginia, and you have gone back to that bridge many times over the past year. Why?
We very quickly after Morgan was abducted found that the last place that Morgan was a place that we needed to remember and to remind the community that a death had occurred or an abduction had occurred and that a bad person remained at large. And so we started a memorial that really sort of was like a stone that gathered a lot of moss on it through the last 12 months. And we had people sending mementos from all over the world. Literally, we had what was called Morgan Rocks, and people would paint rocks or send rocks from literally every continent around the world. And those have all been removed about 2 weeks ago in preparation for the memorial that's going to be placed on Sunday.
And that's how you will mark the anniversary, by being there.
Yeah.
You've also worked with the University of Virginia to raise awareness, to alert young women in that community of the risks that are involved. Talk to me about the progress that you've made.
You know, I think it's a difficult thing. You know, we're doing several things, but you can measure walls and buildings that you do, but to shift a culture, it's not as measurable, and it's probably harder to do. It's like turning an ocean liner. It takes a while to make it happen. But we do feel that President Sullivan at UVA really was kind of handed a difficult agenda in her new role, but took it on. And they have programs with entering students to act together as community, to look out for each other, to limit opportunities for violence on their students.
Absolutely. Jill, you also work with a group called Omni that does medical outreach to orphans in Africa, and that group recently started construction on a school annex in Zambia in your daughter's name.
Right.
And her ashes some of her ashes are actually mixed into the cement of that school, in the foundation, which is fitting because she was studying education, was interested in education.
Right. You know, I did not want to just be left with ashes. And when I was feeling sorry for myself early on, I said, you know, all I've got is this box of ashes. And then I realized from ashes you can make cinder blocks. You can use them as foundation to build something more. And in an odd way, Morgan is likely to impact more lives than she could have done if she were allowed to live.
Yeah, and in some ways the picture that you brought, that she painted, sums up who she is, doesn't it?
Yeah. She was multi-layered, complex for someone who was 20 years old. You know,
but the symbolism of the eye with the world in it.
Yeah, I mean, and she has been all around the world. She was going to go to Africa to travel with me, with Omni. I mean, she's packed supplies and helped with that. She did not go, her ashes did. Her teacher, Jane Vance, took her ashes to Nepal because Morgan was going to travel with Jane. You know, she's going places still. And that is how I think you trump evil, that he stopped her life, but he did not stop the goodness that she could accomplish.
Well, you're accomplishing so much in her name now. Thank you, Jill and Dan, so much. Greatly appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
If you have any information in the case of Morgan Harrington, you can contact Virginia State Police at 434-352-3467.